My name is Janelle Molony, and you are?
Robert McPherson.
And Robert has an incredible story because of the connections that he has to a family crossing on the Oregon Trail back in
1854.
54, and they were the Poteet family.
Poteet.
Okay, so I want to hand it over to you.
Okay.
Tell me that story and what they experienced.
Well, Frances Marion Poteet married a Cherokee Indian woman, and their families did not agree, weren't happy with it. And so they left Arkansas, went up to Missouri, and he and some of his brothers and cousins formed a wagon train. They went along with a larger wagon train. For some reason in my mind, it's a Baker-Fancher wagon train that got waylaid in the Mountain Meadows Massacre. But they go across, up across they called it South Pass.
Yeah.
And Janet and I have gone across that. Now South Pass is north of here.
Yeah, so they probably went up to the Platte River through Fort Laramie, crossed the Black Hills, and
Yes.
came back down through South Pass
Yes.
and Bridger, Fort Bridger down into Salt Lake.
And they went along to Salt Lake. The Mormons at that time had been told by Brigham Young to not sell goods, ammunition, guns, or anything to any of the settlers coming along, because they felt that the United States was going to come out to Utah and have a war with them. Mm-hmm. The idea was that the people in Utah were talking about making Utah a country, not a state, but a country. And the United States did not want that to happen. And so they were warning you proceed with that and we'll come out and stop it. So they were preparing for that. And so the wagon trains that came along through Salt Lake going on south, they couldn't get supplies. They just flour and sugar and all that they couldn't buy. And there was fights that occurred along the way. Finally, south of Cedar City, they had stopped for a rest. They would plan to go into Mountain Meadow, the larger train was. Mm-hmm. And because it was a very grassy area and there was a number of fresh springs, they were planning to spend some time in there kind of recuperating. The Poteets below Cedar City saw a wealthy Mormon being drugged from his fine horse and stripped of his clothes and his gold watch. Mm-hmm. And I don't know why that was so important, but they mention it in the story, his gold watch and his fancy saddle. They go over, and there must have been a number of Poteets, because they go over to this group of men and rescue this Mormon, get his clothes, get his horse and saddle, and bring him back to their camp. And they clean him up, treat his cuts and bruises, and get him dressed, feed him. And before he left, he told them, do not go into Mountain Meadows. When you get to the fork in the road in the morning, take the left-hand road and go on down into Arizona and Nevada. As the story goes, Francis Poteet said, well, that's a very rough road, I understand.
Yeah.
It is not as good a road as those going on. And he said, you do what I ask. Drop the tailgate of your wagon, and any of your friends or relatives who want to follow you, they may. But each of them have their tailgate down. The next morning, they did that. They turned, when they came to the fork in the road, they went on down into Arizona. The rest of the wagon train went into the Mountain Meadows, and there were massacred by the Mormons, and they blamed it on some Indians. But the word is that they think it was white men dressed as Indians. And it was very sad because they battled for a day or two, and the wagon train kind of held them off. And then a white flag was flown, and a Mormon came down. I think his name was Lee, the same guy that did Lee's Ferry. And he came down and says, look, I have bargained with these Indians, and they will allow you to leave if you will put all your guns in one wagon, your children under 12 years old, no, 6 years.
I think it was younger, yeah.
6 years old in a wagon, and then all of you walk out. We will protect you with guards from our group, and we will lead you out of here. Well, the group decided that's what they would do. And as they were walking out, everybody had a guard walking beside them. And at one point, there was an order given, and that guard turned and shot the person he was walking with. He killed, I think it was 120 people.
Oof.
They quickly buried him, but in shallow graves, and the wolves and coyotes dug them up and were eating them. And finally, I think the government went down there and exhumed them and put them all in one grave. And it is a very tall,
right,
a pyramid type monument where they are buried.
And on that monument, you mentioned to me earlier that your family name is on the monument, but they weren't victims. So what was that designation?
Well, a historian was looking at the monument and writing notes. And I said, why are these people over on the side listed? They're not listed with the people who died. And she told me that the people that were listed in the main monument were the ones who had been killed. Those that were on the side on the margin of this monument were people they did not know what happened to them. And I told her, I know what happened to the Poteets because they are my ancestors. And they went on into California and then into Texas.
Oh, wait, California. Why didn't they stay in California?
Well, he was an entrepreneur, and he went into California not to pan for gold. He was a blacksmith. He took with him a what you grind flour with.
A mill?
A mill.
Oh, that would be heavy.
No. Let me explain that. I went to the New Mexico State University and asked a professor about that, and he said at that time, well, he also had a cotton gin. And I says, a cotton gin?
Yeah, that's big, right?
And he says, at that time, you ginned cotton with a drum that was about as big as a 50-gallon drum. And so it was maybe this big and that big around, and you cranked it by hand, and it combed the cotton seed out of the cotton. Yeah. And he had a mill that he had, a stone, and all of this would fit in a wagon. And he went out, and he was a blacksmith. He made implements for the miners. If they were growing cotton, he would help them with their cotton. And if they wanted to grind grain, he had something that would do that.
So he's the guy you call, and he's the guy that gets paid.
The story was that when he only stayed 2 years because he didn't like the camps. And he had by then 5 children. My great grandmother was born in Sonora, California. And she was the 5th child of the Poteets. And he didn't like his children growing up in that atmosphere. So he went down to Los Angeles, which wasn't a big city. It was just a town. And he didn't like it down there. So then he took the trail that went along the southern border all the way back. And if you look, there are forts all the way along. And he went down to San Antonio, turned south, went to Pleasanton, Texas. He put her and the children up in a boarding house, and I think she ran the boarding house. He went off and joined the Confederacy.
Oh, did he come back?
He didn't fight the Union.
What was he doing?
He was out running down Indians in Texas.
Oh.
And after 2 years, he came back and put up a mercantile store, a grist mill. He had his blacksmith shop. He did everything he could to make money.
He really established Pleasanton, right?
No, he set up north of Pleasanton, and it became Poteet, Texas, which is still there today. He was very smart. He had this mercantile store. He told everybody in the area, if you will bring your letters to the mercantile store, I've got to go to San Antonio once a month for groceries and stuff. I'll take your mail. And they says, well, that's great. He says, also, I'll bring back your mail. Now he's thinking, they got to come back and get their mail. They're going to buy you the groceries right here in my store. And so he relayed back and forth from Poteet, Texas to San Antonio. It was on the road to Corpus Christi, so it was a natural byway. He did everything that he could think of to make money.
Sounds like it.
And my father said that he died a wealthy man.
Well, thank you for sharing part of your story with me today, Robert. I appreciate it. I can't wait to share this with my friends because this all fits into the Oregon Trail, the Civil War, and the Wild West, and all those nerdy topics that I like. I loved having this chat with you. Thank you so much, Robert.